Thanks for staying with us on the South Australian Sports Show. Massive game here in Adelaide tonight at Adelaide Oval. The Swans up against the Crows. The defensive specialist coach been good enough to sneak in. Give us a bit of his time, Tate Casler. Tate, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, Phil. Thanks for having me.
Mate, it is going to be a belter of the game. Crows have won 6 of their last 7. Sydney 12 of their last 14. I mean, 2 teams in ripping form meeting the defensive coach, mate. How do you look at the tape and try and find a weakness?
Yeah, no, it's going to be an exciting game. As you said, the last, since they lost those 6, I think, their record's been outstanding, and the way they move the ball, their defensive action's been really good as well. So they're a team that likes to win a lot of contested footy, so it's going to be a real contested game, and, as it's going to be pretty wet, I think it's going to be, one of those ones that whoever gets authority in the middle of the ground there is going to be able to get the ball in their half and hold it in most of the time. So, they're in great form, and it's going to be a great challenge for us.
All right, mate, you mentioned contested footy, and we have to go back a year to draw a comparison, and a year's a long time. They say a week's a long time, so a year's enormous. But first quarter, the contested footy, Sydney dominated that area. So I'd imagine it's one of those games, and everyone's saying you can't give Sydney a head start, nor can you give Adelaide. So it's going to be white hot right from the word go.
You're exactly right. And their first quarters, the last 2 weeks have been outstanding. They jumped Geelong early, and had the ball in their half, kicked really well. And then Fremantle last week, they were brilliant and just got on top right from the start, and had the ball in their half majority of the game. And it's going to be really important that we get off to a good start and win that contested ball and get it in our end.
There has to be obviously a message set. We want to see where we're at coming into the finals, and they want to see where we're at. But we want to be contested. We're the kings, and we want to be. You can't beat us in Adelaide. That's got to be the message that we want to send out. We're here to play. We've moved on from last year. Let's win the contested footy. You don't want to play the Adelaide Crows in the wet at home.
No, that's true. And I don't think you can really draw back on last year and try and make comparisons in that. This is a new season. There's a new squad out. It's who's playing good footy at this time. And again, it's really 2 really good contested teams. And our results in the wet this year have been really good. So we're really confident going into tonight that we're going to have the ascendancy. So it's going to be a great battle. But again, as you said, it's that contested footy right from the start that's going to be really critical for us.
Hey, Tate, you mentioned you can't have a look at last year, and so let's move on from that. But there's a little quirk. Both teams lost their last game against Hawthorn. You did, and so did Sydney. Do you have a look at what the Hawks did in that game and trying to see? I mean, obviously not changing what the Crows are doing.
Yeah.
But do you have a look, and can you find a weakness in there somewhere that the Hawks found in you and in Sydney?
Well, like you said, the last 2 games they played this year, the Hawks have got them. So it's, when you look back at it, the Hawks, their style is to, maintain possession and try and keep the ball off the opposition a bit. So they did that pretty well, but they were pretty efficient going forward as well and scoring. Defensively, Hawks play very similar to how we want to play as well. So hopefully that style stands up. And again, it's trying to get the ascendancy and not allowing them to get into their ball movement and the way they want to move it out of their defensive half and try and trap it in as much as we can.
Mate, you talk about the superstars of the game. None bigger than Buddy Franklin. But in saying that, Sydney had 12 goal kickers last week. The Crows had 11, so there's an even spread. Does Talia get perhaps first look tonight against Buddy?
Yeah, I reckon he does. He probably starts off on him. Alex Keith is another one that's played well the last 3 weeks that we can probably use as well if we need to. And going on their goal kickers, that's something that John Longmire said the last 2 weeks in his press conference, that he's been really happy with the spread of goal kickers they've had. So again, our defenders have got to be on, but it's about limiting that supply, especially to guys like Buddy, because you know what they can do when they're one out. So the more pressure we can put on the ball and get our numbers back to help support Tales and Keithy in those areas, the better off we're going to be at being able to stop the score.
Mate, Sydney are a tough side. It's going to be a big game. Who do you look to shut down? Is it just Buddy, or is it other guys coming from a contested or coming from the back line? Who do you look first to shut down?
Yeah, I think probably the Source is going to be the main spot to stop it. And it's going to be their key midfielders. They've got a plethora of midfielders that can run through that area of the ground. They've also got some young kids that have come in, young local lad Hayward from South Australia. He can play some good footy. Hanbury, obviously, he seems to love playing against us. He racks it up most weeks. So, Jack, looks like Kennedy will be back in the side. So, there's a number of guys that you've got to keep an eye on. But I think the most important thing is you don't try and put all your eggs in one basket and try and shut down one guy. It's going to be that team performance. And saying that, we've got some guys that are in really good form at the moment. The Crouch brothers are playing some good footy. Our forward line's in really good form, and also our defenders are having a real, red hot go down back with the likes of Brown and Keith and, you know, Brodie Smith's in probably career best form at the moment. So we reckon as much as they've got some weapons that are going to be able to control the ball from, we've got some that they're going to have to worry about as well.
We've had an unbelievable run over the last couple of years with injuries. I know Brett Burton's come back to the club. Do you put it down to luck or do you put it down to good management, or why have we been so lucky with injuries, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a few things that go towards that. One is management and the way you look after your guys, and it's really important that this is the time of the year you want to have as many players on the list available. So I think, you know, there's also that cautious approach against guys when they do get injuries, that one, you manage them correctly, the rehabilitation part of it's really good, and you don't rush them back too early. I think that's really important, and we've had along the whole season that we're not going to take risks on anyone. So if there's someone that we're, you know, and ahhing about, more than likely we're going to leave them out to make sure that they have the best rehab to get themselves right for the important part of the year.
Oh, when you talked about the source before, mate, I thought you were talking about the source. I mean, the source is the midfield. Clearly, the way we're hearing it from you and the lead up to the game is everything's going to be about limiting the ball out of the midfield, so it's going to be massive. I mean, he has had an amazing year, so I think he's probably all-Australian or dangerously close. So he's been able to, though, ruck unbelievably well and then give you that big target up forward, which looks like maybe an edge against Sydney.
No, definitely, and I think that's probably the thing that Sauce has added to his game. We know in the ruck and how good a ball, you know, he can supply our midfielders with, but now it's his ability to spread and get around the ground and get possessions against Port, you know, kick 2 goals. You know, it's just his ability to add that extra bit apart to just being a ruckman. You know, he classes himself as a tall midfielder, so, you know, he wants to get as many possessions as he can. When he starts getting handball receives, that's when we get a little bit worried, so we pull him back a little bit. But look, he's been fantastic, and at this point in time, I think he's in form ruck in the competition.
I think he's been brilliant at everything except the ad that he does for pies and sauce, mate.
Nothing wrong with pies and sauce, mate.
Join the sauce.
If they had the best and fairest now, who wins it?
Oh, I'd be putting my cards with Matty Crouch. I reckon he's had a fantastic year. You know, Sloaney was outstanding to start, but I think Matt's probably been the most consistent. Over the season to date.
He'd be all-Australian. I mean, there's a massive list of outstanding midfielders, but he's probably been the most consistent
Fair
one.
competition then.
I know there is, but I think he's probably disadvantaged because he's Matt Crouch this year. Hasn't been Matt Crouch for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of someone that's had a better year in the midfield.
Yeah.
I know that there's a list of them.
Yeah.
And they're big names, but I think if the numbers stacked up right now, I think it's probably Matty Crouch.
No, definitely. And I'd be disappointed if he didn't make the squad of 40 to start with. He's had a fantastic year. I think he's had 11 or 12 games over 30 possessions. His clearance work is outstanding, and he just adds another dimension to our midfield group along with his brother Brad. And obviously Sloaney's now starting to get back to that form that he had at the start of the year. So yeah, I'd be very surprised, mate, if he wasn't in the talks at the All-Australian selection.
Richie Douglas is having a career best year as well, isn't he? He's having massive games every week.
Yeah, Dougie, he's added to his game again this year. I think what Dougie brings you is he's one of those guys that you can throw forward, you can have him in the midfield, and he can even play back. So he just adds great versatility to our group. And you're right, his season this year has been outstanding. He does go underrated, I reckon, across the competition. And if he was in Melbourne, I'm sure he'd be getting talked about a lot more than he does here in Adelaide.
Hey, mate, we've got to go. So I'd like to give you a couple of quick ones. Hugh Greenwood, I mean, you're a basketball man, I'm a basketball man, so we love our basketball guys.
Yeah.
I mean, has he surprised you that he's been as good as he has been and as consistent in his first year really into the AFL?
I'd like to say yes, but no.
No.
He's a. I think the
I mean,
thing.
we could see it, but
but he's such a professional.
Yes.
And I think that's the experience that he's brought from basketball and how to prepare yourself, prepare your body. Like you're talking in meetings and he's eyeballing you. Like he's an astute athlete that wants to get better. So I saw potential probably when he first started, but it doesn't surprise me that he's been able to come in and hold his position. And Alex Keith is another. You know, they're both competitors, so I think that's half the battle. If you've got someone that comes as a competitor, they're already halfway there, and then the skill and the knowledge just is the cream on the top.
All right, mate. It's going to be a ripper of a game tonight. Hopefully the Crows get up and we just see a nice game of footy. It's not too wet. Tate, thanks for coming in, mate. Stay with us. Barnsley's here. Plenty to come on the show.